Christmas means so much to us all. It's once a year, it's Christmas time, and it happens once a year. It's once a year at Christmas time, when we hear about how Christmas only comes once a year.
Okay, this part of the video is being filmed right before I started watching TLC. I just got done watching the Cowboys-Packers game, and while I was ecstatic to see the Cowboys fall apart again and lose, it does bring up something that a point that I want to make about football, and I see it happen all the time, especially to the Cowboys. And, you look at them and they always have these big collapses, especially when they have big leads. I mean, this seems to happen to them a lot. It happened to them against the Denver Broncos. They should have won that game this year, and they didn't. So what happened? What goes on? What causes that? Is Romo just a choke artist? Is their defense just terrible? What's the problem? I think the problem is, and the commentators were talking about it, me personally, the problem is they don't know how to manage the goddamn clock. And I'm a very Bill Parcells-minded guy. Bill Parcells is my favorite coach in the history of football. It's like, you've got to pound the ball down their throats and control the clock. When I look at a game and I look at the stat to me that's most important, besides the score, obviously the scoreboard is the most important stat, but to me the most important stat is time of possession. And if you can dominate the clock, you control the game, because you're taking away opportunities from the other team to come back and win the game. And if you go out there, you build a big lead. They were what was the score? I think it was 26-3, 29-3, something like that, at half. And you go out in the start of the second half and you're still throwing the ball, you open yourself up to interceptions. You open yourself up to a disaster taking place. And that's why a lot of this stuff happens with the Dallas Cowboys. They don't manage the goddamn clock. And that's why they find themselves in these goddamn positions all the fucking time. If they would just build the big lead and then move to, try and running the ball, drain the clock, even if they go 3 and out, you're taking at least 2 minutes off of the clock with very little fear of turning the ball over. But you should have a strong running game to help support that. Every team should strive to have that. Because to me, controlling the clock is something that should be very important. And if I were a football coach, not that I'm a football genius or anything, but that would be my top priority. Because again, I'm a very Parcells-minded guy. I'm a believer of his philosophy of football. You got to control the clock. You got to pound it down with running. If you build a lead, you got to control that lead, and the best way to do that is to control the clock. So when people sit around and they discuss and they debate why this stuff always happens to the Dallas Cowboys, especially during the Romo era, that is why. They build their lead and then they don't know how to sustain it, because they go out there and they keep trying to go for the big plays. They keep trying to throw the ball when they should be more focused on putting the game away by controlling the clock. That should be their number one priority once they build a big lead. And when you build a big halftime lead like they had over the Packers, and then to go out there and start throwing the ball at the start of the second half, I mean, you could almost sense it. Like, oh boy, it's gonna happen again. And sure enough, it did. And another chapter in the tragedy of Tony Romo, I guess. But it's it's not just the Cowboys. I'm just using them as the prime example. But I see it happen a lot. If you go back a few years, you look at the Giants, that horrendous game against Michael Vick and the Eagles, where they came back, they scored 28 points in the last 8 minutes to come back and win it. What it came down to is they didn't know how to manage the clock. The play calling at the end of that game was atrocious for the Giants on offense. And that's opened the door for that kind of shit to happen. It's still inexcusable, but I mean, it's an explanation. It's not an excuse. But that's one of the main reasons that happened. They couldn't maintain a drive, and they couldn't keep the ball, and they couldn't drain the clock, and there you go. And that's my rant. Time of possession. That's the key stat in football, in my opinion. You control the clock, you control the game. And I'm amazed in how many times I've seen teams blow games when they just can't put it away and they can't control that clock. Clock management is key. But that's enough of my football rant, so on to the rest of the video. Okay, here I am. I'm filming this right after Raw finished and right after I just caught the ending to that great Ravens and Detroit Lions game. Great finish there with the 60-yard field goal. But as you've probably found, usually with my pattern, I do like to watch Monday Night Raw before reviewing a pay-per-view because I like to see how they follow up the pay-per-view storyline-wise on Monday Night Raw the next night. And while Raw wasn't a bad show, there were a couple of good matches here and there, and they continue to show great depth in the tag division. And Bryan and Orton certainly had a good match as well in the main event. Nothing huge really happened storyline-wise, so that's not really going to impact my TLC talk that much. So with that, talking about TLC, overall, it was an okay show. Overall, better than the recent string. Like, Survivor Series was a little weak, Battleground was a little weak, and Night of Champions was a little weak. Hell in a Cell was kind of meh. This was the best one in a while. Still not up to that, like, really good level that they were at during the summer with, like, Money in the Bank and especially SummerSlam, which was fantastic. But it wasn't a bad show. We got CM Punk defeating The Shield in the opening match. Good match, and they worked it really well. I'm not a fan of Punk going over, and I like CM Punk, I really do, but I feel The Shield really should be protected, because it's one of the, like, really hot acts that they have, or, like, believable dominant forces that the WWE has. And granted, they didn't do the typical Cena thing, where if Cena was in this match, he'd have overpowered all three of them and won the match, but they did it in a way where it looked like The Shield kind of beat themselves with Roman Reigns, you know, overshooting Punk and hitting the announce table and hurting his eye, and that playing a role later on. So it looked like the Shield beat themselves. Punk didn't just straight up overpower them and beat them, because if that had happened, that would have been bullshit. But I still kind of feel like, don't, you know, protect the Shield a little bit better. They're laying the seeds for a Shield split. It feels that way, like Roman Reigns is eventually going to split from the group or whatever. Please, if that's in the cards, which it probably is, please don't do that until you've done the feud with the Wyatts. That needs to happen first, and I think the Wyatts-Shield match needs to happen at WrestleMania. So if you want to have the split happen after losing to the Wyatts at WrestleMania, that's completely fine, but we need to get that Wyatts match first before that takes place. So if you're going to split up the Shield, please give us the Wyatts feud first. That's all I ask. If you want to use this to lay the seeds for it later, that's completely fine. I just ask that we get that big match first, because we all want it. So, and it needs to happen, because you got 2 3-man factions that the fans view as nearly unbeatable. So that's a match that absolutely needs to happen. And you've already had them interact as partners, and the fans went apeshit for it. So I think it's a very natural match to do, and one that the fans can really sink their teeth into. Alright, next up was the Divas title match, AJ Lee versus Natalya. I actually like this match. I thought this was a pretty solid Divas match, and you normally don't get those, but when you have a good in-ring talent like Natalya and a strong character like AJ, it makes for a good match. And AJ's a good worker, too, for the most part. So, yeah, this was a pretty solid match. I was shocked that AJ went over, given the big news headline that broke, I think it was on Saturday, about her blow-up at the Tribute to the Troops at Michelle Beadle, or whatever her name is. But, yeah, I was shocked that AJ didn't drop the title there, but, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with that going forward. But maybe AJ's character isn't as much of a character. It's a little bit closer to real life than people think. I don't know, because I read that story. It almost sounded like something she would have done in character. And even the woman she yelled at, Michelle Beadle, she kind of said on Twitter, it's like, I thought it was a joke. So, who knows? I'm not excusing the behavior at all. I'm not. I'm just saying. Actually, I am saying, it's like, maybe they should keep an eye on AJ. Maybe she's a little closer to, you know, her reality is a little closer to her real life persona. I don't know if she's going to do something like that. But anyway, like I said, good Divas match. Then we got the IC title match, Damian Sandow versus Biggie Langston. I love Damian Sandow's promo before the match, and I have to say, the WWE creative must be on, like, an annual mission to make every Christmas episode of Raw, like, insanely stupid and laughably hilarious. Because Damian Sandow as the bad Santa and Mark Henry as the good Santa is terrible, but at the same time absolutely fucking hilarious. So, and the promotion for that episode was great. It's like, oh my god, they don't give a shit, do they? It's like, you know what? it's the holidays. We're just going to make a stupid show, and it's going to be hilariously bad. Because last year's Christmas show was certainly hilariously bad. But, yeah, Damien Sandow's fantastic. He totally sells that stuff and makes it good. This match was whatever. It's better than the IC title matches that Curtis Axel was in. I'll give it that. But, they haven't given me a whole lot of reason to care about the IC title, even though I'd much rather have it on Langston than on Curtis Axel, but, whatever. So that match happened. And then we got the 4-way tag team match, and I have to say I was a little disappointed in how they set this match up. They put Rey Mysterio and Big Show into this match, and they put Curtis Axel and Ryback into this match, and to me they really don't belong there because... to me, a 3-way or a 4-way far too often is used as a way to just cram people in there. When you do that, a 3-way or a 4-way, I feel like it should be a situation where you look at it and it's like, all right, these guys are the top of the division. These are the guys that absolutely belong in there. Like, to use a TNA example, the Unbreakable Triple Threat, AJ, Daniels, and Joe, one of the reasons that match was so easy to accept was that you looked at the X division, it was like, yeah, they're the top 3 guys. This wasn't just a way to cram people on the show. This was the top 3 guys in the division fighting for the title. And it's a little disappointing because WWE has been really good about this lately with the tag division, but you look at the tag division, all right, who are the top teams? You think, obviously the Rhodes because they're the champions, Shield, Wyatt's, Usos, Real Americans. And, if you're going to do a 4-way, you would expect 3 of those 4 teams, the Wyatts, Usos, Shield, or Real Americans to be in there. And Big Show and Ray just started teaming, and it's like, where the hell did they... I mean, I don't have a problem with them being a team, and hey, the way their tag division is going, the more the merrier. Keep adding teams, and I think it's great. But they weren't well established as a team to really belong in this match. And Curtis Axel and Ryback, I haven't seen them win a match. So maybe they have, I don't know, but they hadn't been built up to the point that I would buy them as top contenders to the tag titles. And this is one of those 4-ways that really felt like they were just cramming people onto the card just for the sake of having a pay-per-view match. All of that said, the match was pretty damn good. Especially when it got down to, once, Ryback's whole got out of there because they suck, whatever. Once they got out of there and they just kind of let the athleticism of the guys take over, it was really, really good. The Rhodes are great as always. Real Americans meshed really well with them. Ray and Big Show did really well. I thought Ray and Cody did some great stuff together. And Big Show and Goldust, I thought, had some decent chemistry as well. So that final sequence where it came down to the 2 babyface teams, I thought was really good. So... it was just great tag team action, and God, as a tag team wrestling fan, I'm so happy to see WWE doing stuff like that. And this wasn't up to par with like some of the Shield and Rhodes matches because it didn't have the storyline build behind it to really, to really give it any kind of meaningful substance. But as a just straight up tag team action, it was very, very good. So certainly really enjoyed that. So yeah, kudos. Rhodes retained the titles as expected. I would have been disappointed if they lost the titles in a match like this. But again, a match with no real storyline build put into it. Then after that we got, I think it was Brodus Clay versus R-Truth. This was awful. If you want to establish Brodus Clay as a monster heel, I don't think having him lose to R-Truth after beating him up for 5 minutes is a good way to do it. Just saying, but I don't know. I think maybe too much damage has been done to Brodus to really make a monster heel push with him work. I don't know. I wasn't digging this, and I typically hate R-Truth matches anyway. So, this was just filler. I didn't care. Then the next match was the next match in the Kofi Kingston-Miz series that makes absolutely no goddamn sense. Because it started off, it's like, oh, we're a team, and we need to make the team work. But then Miz turns on his partner, and then they keep trying to make the team work. And it's like they weren't even a team before, so why do they feel the need to make the team keep going? I don't know. Is Miz a heel or not? I don't know. It just kept... the setup for this was just really confusing, and they really went back and forth on it initially. So, in the end, both guys went out there and they tried to make something out of it, but the fans didn't give a shit, and they had no reason to give a shit because the feud makes no goddamn sense. And if you don't have any investment in the characters or the story, the match typically isn't going to work. And even with the 4-way tag, it's like, all right, the fans are invested in the Rhodes brothers. With good reason, so that works. Rey Mysterio is over. The Real Americans are over, so there's a reason for that match to get their investment, even if it has no story behind it. This didn't even have like real investment in the characters, because even though the fans could like Kofi from time to time, but the story here just doesn't click and doesn't make any sense. So because of that, the match just doesn't work. Sorry, that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Then we got Daniel Bryan versus the Wyatts in the other 3-on-1 handicap match, and this was alright. It was, again, pretty much what you would expect, given the setup. The Wyatts went over, which I was happy with. Again, I feel like they should be kind of protected and made to look strong in situations like this. And, we got to see Bray Wyatt do the Exorcist spider walk again, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, this match was fine. It was alright. And then we got the main event, which was a good, fun TLC match, not one of my more favorite TLC matches. Was it just me, or did it look like the belts were hanging down really low? It didn't look like it was as high as it usually is in these type of matches, which is probably for the better, because some of those falls, if you look at other TLC matches, some of those falls are pretty dangerous. But when Cena was hanging off of the thing, I was like, he's not that high off the ground, comparatively to other... if I were to compare it to other TLC matches, he's not that high off the ground, but... he could probably jump down and be okay and not, take the chair shots. But, overall, this match was a good, solid match. Again, I'm glad they unified the titles. That's something that needed to happen. They didn't do any screwy bullshit like... some people were predicting that Triple H was going to somehow win the belts. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That's... I know it's Triple H, and when he gets his fingers into something, he can really fuck it up and put himself over, but it just wouldn't have made any sense. I couldn't fathom a way that they could have made that work. And they didn't do anything. I know a lot of people were predicting that they were just going to switch titles, Cena and Orton, and thank God they didn't do that, because that would have made the entire main event an exercise in pointlessness. They didn't do the Cena heel turn, but like I said, it would be the smart thing to do. They had the perfect opportunity to do it, especially with the promo on Raw last week, where Cena was in full-on suck-up mode. And it was like, you know what, if they're turning him heel, this is like a perfect setup. If they're not turning him heel, it's just typical Cena bullshit. So I guess it was just typical Cena bullshit. But, Cena did lose clean, which was kind of shocking. Old Testament Wrath of God type stuff. Seas and rivers boiling over, earthquakes and volcanoes, the dead rising from the grave, human sacrifices, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. A heel beats Cena clean. And actually, this is the second time Cena's lost clean on pay-per-view this year, between that and SummerSlam and this. It's like, oh wow, this is like, is the world coming to an end? Cena's actually losing pay-per-view matches clean now. What the fuck? But yeah, overall I thought the match was good. It felt like Orton took all the table bumps. I will say this though, when they handcuffed Cena, I was like, alright, Cena's going to be Superman, he's going to rip the handcuffs. It's like, oh my god, look how strong he is. But what they did by having him unhook the turnbuckle, I was like, okay, that's actually kind of clever and creative. I'm like, alright, he actually had to use his brain instead of just being, I'm strong and I overcome everything. And like, no, they actually did something kind of cool and creative. Kind of like in this Sting-Bully Ray match at Slammiversary, where Bully Ray cut the ring apart and exposed the mat underneath the covering. I was like, oh, that's actually creative. You don't see that too often. So, all right, cool. And I thought Cena missing the table and kind of landing head first on the table actually made it look sicker. It's one of those cases where they didn't get the spot they were going for, but it actually worked better because it looked nastier on camera. So, yeah, overall, I thought it was a good TLC match. And this is coming from somebody that hates Orton and Cena's matches. So this is probably the best match I've ever seen them have. The one that I've enjoyed the most anyway. So, yeah, Orton will probably be the champion heading into WrestleMania. He's probably going to face either Punk or Bryan. We'll see. But yeah, overall, TLC was an okay show. Like I said, I really liked the 4-way tag. I liked the TLC match overall. They didn't do anything insanely stupid in the TLC match, although I would have preferred a Cena heel turn, but I can't be disappointed with it because you just, you know they're not going to do it. That's just the thing. And everything else was kind of, hit or miss. The 3-on-1 matches were all right. The Divas match was all right. Was pretty solid. Most of the filler matches kind of fell flat, but whatever. It wasn't a terrible show. It was an all right show. Again, not great, but better than their recent string of shows. So, yeah, that's TLC in a nutshell. Okay, well, with TNA taping so many of their impacts in advance, seriously, so many spoilers were coming out for TNA. I was like, are they going to tape all the way through lockdown? And really, but I think they just taped everything up to the UK tour in January. There's a lot to get through with TNA and a lot to talk about, but there's two major things that I want to cover. The first one is that there is a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion. If you haven't read the spoilers, turn this off now. It's Magnus. And he is now Dixie Carter's little puppet champion and going to be the new corporate suck-up, corporate champion type. And how do I feel about that? I don't hate Magnus as a talent. I want to make that clear. I don't think he's an awful talent. I don't dislike him. I think he's got a good look. He's good at delivery on the mic. He hasn't had great material, and I think that's part of the problem, though. His character and his development as a character hasn't had the type of path or strength to it that, say, Bobby Roode did a couple of years ago. Or, say, CM Punk did when he laid down the pipe bomb and went nuts on the whole company. Magnus, there's nothing really about him that really stands out. He's just generic bad guy with an accent. And that's pretty much all he's ever been, and they've never really developed him beyond that point. He's more of like Wade Barrett, kind of, actually. And I probably like Magnus more than Wade Barrett, to be perfectly honest, but I just don't buy him as world champion. I just look at him and it's like, man, I just don't see it. And granted, he's gotten a lot better in the ring. Some of his recent matches with, of course, he had a meh match with Sting at Bound for Glory, but I think that's because of Sting's age more than anything else. But he's had some decent matches lately. The match he had with AJ in the BFG Series finals, I thought was very good. Granted, that's AJ, but Magnus held his own too. It's just I have a hard time buying him as a World Heavyweight Champion type, and this is one of those cases where it's like, if TNA had done a better job of booking the TV title, they could have probably given him a solid run with that and make that a strong secondary championship run to kind of get people used to seeing Magnus with a belt, a singles belt, and try and make that work. Because I think a heavyweight secondary championship is a good idea for TNA. They've just never been able to do it right. I mean, that TV title, global title, Legends title, whatever, it's always been booked like shit. So, nobody ever really had that good of a run with it. And did Magnus ever have it? I don't even remember if he ever had it. But, him as champion, I'm just not sold on it. I'm not, and that, combined with the fact that Dixie Carter is the top heel on the show, and I'll say this. She's not Vicky Guerrero bad, and she's probably not even Linda McMahon bad, but she's bad. She is bad. Her accent's a little annoying. Her delivery's not that great. It's one of those cases where they pushed her because everybody thinks the Smarks hate her guts, and they decided to push her for that reason, but she's not a strong enough performer to really make that work. She doesn't have the talent to really make that work. It's, I think Mark Madden wrote an article about it, and he said it's changed the channel heat. And I'm like, yeah, cut from the same cloth. That's like Mike Adamle, that's like Vicky Guerrero, Bubba the Love Sponge, Dixie Carter. It's very much like that. So I'm not very hopeful for the Magnus main event run or, Dixie Carter continuing to be the main heel of the show. And another thing that makes me less hopeful about TNA is that by all outward appearances, it seems like AJ Styles is done with the company. He came back, had his unification match with Magnus, lost, and that was pretty much his last night in the company. At least, I mean, they could very well be working us, but it doesn't seem that way. And AJ's even released a statement saying that he's gone from the company. So, I mean, on one hand, it forces TNA to create new stars and kind of move in the new direction and try and come up with something different, because for years and years and years they've had these guys that are kind of their faithful go-tos, like AJ Styles, like James Storm, like Christopher Daniels, and guys like that. Guys they can kind of just rely on to get him through a pinch or whatever, and AJ's obviously been the top guy for that role, but, what does it say about the state of the company if they can't come to terms on an agreement with AJ Styles, the guy who's been there since day one, the guy who's kind of been their Sting? I mean, to me, this is like WCW losing Sting or ECW losing Tommy Dreamer or something. It just doesn't feel right. It's like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? If you can't keep him under contract, it gives me severe fears of, pretty much anybody else on the roster. I mean, because it's like, well, if AJ can get if they can let him go, I mean, pretty much anybody can be let go. It's not a good sign. It really isn't. It really says about the current money situation that they have going. If they lost so many guys on their roster and they still can't give AJ Styles the money he's asking for, and that just makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. And I feel bad that they've lost AJ because he's one of the few reasons I've kept watching all these years. And now it's like I'm having less and less reasons to watch TNA now, and losing AJ is a... and I thought yes, they were ripping off the CM Punk thing, but I thought that was kind of a cool element they had going where they had AJ defending the title off in Mexico and Japan while they were crowning a new champion in the actual promotion. So I thought they were doing some interesting stuff there, but man, losing him is not good. Not good at all. And quite honestly, with Magnus as the top guy, it's kind of making TNA look like NXT or something, or like just a glorified indie fed, which many people have said that's what they are anyway. But they're losing so many guys that it's just looking so depleted, and man, it looks like dark times are... I mean, they are going through a real... To call it a rough patch would be an understatement. This is not looking good for TNA at all, and losing AJ Styles just sends up so many red flags for me personally. So I don't know what they're going to do and how they're going to follow up on this, but it doesn't look good. 2014, I don't know. And apparently, reading the spoilers, another development, apparently Hardy's gone too. I don't know if that's legitimate or if that's a work, but I mean, it feels like everybody's jumping ship, and that... Again, that's not a very good sign, and all you can do is kind of shrug your shoulders and just be like, oh, well, when is that Rise and Fall of TNA DVD coming out from WWE? I mean, it's kind of, it like I said, it ain't looking good at all, but, 2014, we'll see what TNA does, but it looks like they haven't got much of a lifespan left in them, and that's a shame, because I feel like I like having a second wrestling promotion on a national level, on a mainstream level, on cable television, but, hey, I mean, they did a lot of things to shoot themselves in the foot, and obviously the Hogan experiment didn't work out, and they're kind of left out in the cold right now, and, it's a shame, but womp, 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 what can you do? Now, I know I said both movie reviews I'm doing are going to be mini reviews or whatever, but fuck it, I'm going to go off on tangents with both of them, so you may be here a while. So Disney's Frozen. Now, before I talk about the movie itself, I do want to talk about how I initially had absolutely no interest in seeing this movie, and I want to illustrate where I was coming from and why I had no interest in seeing this movie. Actually, as far as Disney movies go, I was more interested in seeing Saving Mr. Banks, which is about the making of Mary Poppins, which, quite honestly, I don't care if you think I'm a cornball or not, that's my favorite live-action Disney movie. I don't care what anybody says. Mary Poppins is awesome, okay? And a movie about its creation and making the movie I thought was interesting. But I decided on Frozen instead, although initially I was more interested in Saving Mr. Banks. And where I was coming from with why I initially didn't want to see Frozen, which is based off of The Snow Queen, which is a Hans Christian Andersen story. First of all, my only experience with The Snow Queen, I never read the actual story. The only time I ever saw anything related to The Snow Queen was the fairy tale theater version. And I love fairy tale theater. I talked about The Boy Who Left Home to Find Out About the Shivers, and I love a lot of the other ones too. The Aladdin one's great. The Three Little Pigs one is amazing. Go see the Three Little Pigs one. You know why? Jeff Goldblum plays the wolf, and it's every bit as awesome as it sounds. So go check out the Three Little Pigs from Fairy Tale Theater, and you're welcome. Pee Wee Herman plays Pinocchio, and that one's pretty solid. Funny. Jack and the Beanstalk's a really good one. God, what are some of my other favorites? The Little Mermaid one I love because it's dark as shit, and way better than the Disney version's too happy. I like the dark one. So, yeah, basically I love fairy tale theater, but the Snow Queen was not one of my favorite ones. I believe it was Lee Remick who played the Snow Queen, and I was not a big fan of that one. Even as a kid, it never really grabbed me. So I was never that interested in the story itself. Again, you know, coming from somebody who's never actually read the Hans Christian Andersen story. And Disney's been putting out their CGI movies lately. Tangled came out, which is based off Rapunzel, obviously. And Wreck-It Ralph came out, which is their big kind of video game movie. And people raved about those movies. People told me that Tangled was Beauty and the Beast level good, and that's a heavy boast because I hold Beauty and the Beast in a very high esteem as far as Disney animated movies go. And Tangled was okay. I thought the music was a little weak. My favorite song in the movie was I Have a Dream, which was the Goofy Bar song. And if the Goofy Bar song is the best song in the movie, I think you've got problems. It was kind of this generic poppy kind of music, and I wasn't a huge fan of most of the songs. I don't know. The movie just didn't click with me like it did with a lot of other people. There's some great things in it. The animation is beautiful. And I love the horse. Maximus is fantastic, but overall as a movie, it didn't really catch my attention all that much. I was a little disappointed with it because people hyped it up to me as this great movie, and I thought it was just kind of, it's all right. And then Wreck-It Ralph, same thing. People raved about Wreck-It Ralph, and again, parts of it are really good. I love the environments they created. Ralph is a fun character, and some of the video game crossover stuff is great, although I don't think it took full advantage of it the way, say, Roger Rabbit did with all of its character crossovers. Wreck-It Ralph was just kind of an ordinary kids movie. Again, some of the animation's very good. Jane Lynch is awesome. Jane Lynch is awesome in anything she does, and anything with her in it, I'll give it a chance. And she was probably my favorite character in the movie. But again, Sarah Silverman's kind of annoying, and she was kind of annoying in this as well. It was just kind of okay. It was just a solid, okay kids movie. Inoffensive, but I didn't see what the big deal was. So Disney's last two animated CGI films, I was kind of, they're okay, but I'm not going to go out of my way to see the next one, probably. I'll tell you, the one I liked was Princess and the Frog. I don't care what anybody says. People call that movie racist. I look at it, first of all, every white character in that movie is a fucking moron, so... and the most interesting, engaging, compelling characters are the black characters. I love Tiana, and the Shadow Man is fucking awesome. One of my favorite Disney villains. So, yeah, I like that movie. And I like the music, too. Even if it is Randy Newman, I do like the music. But for whatever reason, people look down on that one. But, yeah, so the last two were kind of, a little disappointing to me. And then I saw the advertising for Frozen, and I showed you the poster right at the start of this review. Bland as shit. It's just the characters buried in the snow and this obnoxious-looking snowman in the center. And I'm like, oh god, Disney, that looks horrible. And then I saw the TV spots, and the TV spots, lame jokes. This obnoxious snowman is the focus of the marketing. And it just kind of looks like, oh, it's a goofy little movie. And it looks like a really bad one. I'm not against animated movies being straight up comedies, but you have to be good at it. Like Despicable Me was advertised as this cute little goofy comedy, and that's what it is, and it's good at it. So I have no problem with Despicable Me, and the Minions are awesome. I didn't see the second one, but I expect the second one was pretty much more of the same. But Frozen looked like a bad, silly little comedy, and it was just like, Disney, what are you doing? And nothing really grabbed me. I don't know, the advertising for this movie was completely terrible, and at least based on the stuff that I saw. And it's like, oh, it's not a blizzard, it's my sister. What? And it just looked awful, and I was initially like, I'm avoiding that movie like the plague. I'm an animation fan, and I'm a Disney fan, but that movie just looks terrible. Whoever marketed this movie, whoever was in charge of marketing this movie, needs to be fired. I have never been this pissed off over the marketing for a good movie in a long time. I mean, normally if the marketing is bad, it reflects on the the quality of the movie. Like, the marketing for Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star, was obnoxious as hell, but guess what? It's one of the worst movies ever made. I could tell it was one of the worst movies ever made from the marketing. And, the critical reaction and the consumer reaction pretty much justified my reaction to the marketing. But here, the marketing was so obnoxious and so light and fluffy and not entertaining, and then the word of mouth comes out about the quality of this movie. people are telling me, dude, it's awesome. This movie's amazing. And then the soundtrack comes out, and people show me bits and pieces of the soundtrack. I'm like, oh my god, the music's amazing. And, you know, the positivity towards this movie was immense and just overwhelmingly glowing reviews all across the board. And I was like, really? Because it looked terrible. And I was just curious, and again, you know, people told me Tangled was great, and I think that movie's overrated. People told me Wreck-It Ralph was great, and I think that movie's overrated. I was like, okay, I've got to see what people are saying about this movie, because the advertising campaign for this movie showed me nothing of value, nothing of intrigue, just nothing. And it's based on a story that I don't have that much interest in anyway, based off of, you know, my childhood experiences. And then I saw the movie, and it is an instant Disney classic. And I'm telling you right now, if you liked Tangled or Wreck-It Ralph, which that's another thing, and I'm going to go on the rant about the title here in a second, but if you like both of those movies, I'm telling you that Frozen is better than both of those movies combined. It's just an instant animated classic, and you know, going to the titles, and I'll throw Tangled into this as well. Why do they like use all these funky titles for their princess fairy tales now? It's really bizarre. Like, why can't Tangled just be called Rapunzel? Why can't Frozen just be called the Snow Queen? I don't understand that. It's just really bizarre to me. I don't get it. And I was actually joking with a friend of mine. It's like, well, you know, if the Disney movies we grew up with were coming out now, they would have different titles too. Like, Snow White would be called Bitten. Cinderella would be called Shattered. Sleeping Beauty would be called Spellbound, or something silly like that. And if they ever do The Princess and the Pea, which is a Hans Christian Andersen story as well, it'll either be called Canned, because peas come out of a can, or it'll be called Stacked, because of the stack of the 20 beds. Or mattresses or whatever. So if they ever do Princess and the Pea, I guarantee you that will be one of the titles. But, or one of those two will be the title of the movie. So that's just my little mini rant on the title. And I guess that ties into the marketing as well, because the title's not even cool. It's like one word that sounds hip and cool, and that's all we're going to put into the titling of the movie. But we'll just call the damn thing the Snow Queen. But I watched this movie, and they did so many things right. The animation is stunning. The visuals are stunning. And I saw it in 2D. I didn't even see it in 3D. The animation in this movie is absolutely stunning. The scene where she builds the Snow Queen builds her ice castle is unbelievably just beautiful. Some wonderful animation all around, and it's not just this boring snowy landscape that the advertising made it look like it was gonna be. There's some amazing visuals in this movie, and why wouldn't you use that to advertise the movie? I don't understand. The music is fantastic. The songs are great. Let It Go, which I'm playing for you right now in the background music. If that song isn't the winner of Best Original Song at the Academy Awards, there better be one damn good song that I don't know about, because that song was just unbelievable. Again, that's the song that's playing while she's building her ice castle. And, you know, if you're looking for a good poster, why didn't you just show the ice castle on the snowy mountain? And then, you know, Frozen underneath, and that's your title. And it's this amazing looking landscape. Why not use that as the poster? Why not use that in the marketing? And I don't understand it. I just really don't understand why they marketed the movie this way. I've heard that it's like, well, they're trying to mimic DreamWorks, and that's what they're doing. And it's like, so wait a minute, you gotta dumb down the movie for kids? Kids will only accept it, and they'll only go see it, and they'll only show interest in seeing it if it's stupid? Because I remember when Lion King came out, and, you know, when I was a kid during the Disney Renaissance, and Aladdin came out, and Beauty and the Beast came out, they wowed you with the trailers, with these stunning visuals, and clips of the music that was going to be in the movie, and, you know, it had its jokes too, but they made these movies look larger than life. I remember when I saw the first teaser trailer for The Lion King, it blew my mind, and it was just a teaser trailer, and it was like, look, we are proud to show you this thing that we made. This movie we made is a masterpiece. We are proud of it, and we want to show it to you, and we guarantee you, if you go see this with your family, it will be an awesome experience all around. Now, Disney isn't always right about that. I mean, Pocahontas was a piece of shit, but what in the marketing, what did they use to highlight the marketing for Pocahontas? The stunning animation and some of the music. And that's the stuff in the movie that's really good. The writing is terrible, but they highlighted the things that are really good about the movie. Even Little Mermaid, which I'm not a huge fan of because I think the main... Okay, here's my thing with Little Mermaid. Animation is beautiful. Music is fantastic. The side characters are great. Love the villain. That's all great. The main character's a dumbass, and that just ruins the whole movie for me. But there's a lot of good in Little Mermaid that they highlighted in their marketing to make it look like, look, this is a movie that you're going to want to see and that you're going to want to take your kids to. Regardless of whether or not I'm the biggest fan of it, they made that movie look amazing in its marketing. And what, are kids just dumb nowadays? Are boys just inherently sexist now? Because it's like, alright, well, we can't have Snow Queen mentioned and we can't have princesses mentioned. It's just gotta be, we gotta make the snowman the center of the marketing or else boys are not gonna want to go see this. And that just makes no sense to me. I mean, you have this wonderful animation, great set pieces, great music, and again, Let It Go better be nominated and win for Best Original Song at the Academy Awards. I don't see how it can't. I really don't. And when it all comes down to, all of that stuff is great, but then the writing and the story is very good, and the story itself is this intimate, simple story between two sisters and their falling out and their bond and repairing their bond. And that's the basic gist of the story. And it's this emotional little story, and it's really, really good, and the characters are great and a lot of fun. I like the Snow Queen, I like her sister, I like the Woodsman, and I like his pet reindeer. I thought the reindeer was really funny. He might not be as good as Maximus the horse, but I thought the reindeer was really good. And even the snowman, who I was ready to hate. I was like, I'm going to hate this character up and down this entire movie. It's going to be the Jar Jar Binks effect. He's introduced, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to hate you. I can just tell I'm going to hate you. And then he has a song, which admittedly is probably the weakest song in the movie, but it's not terrible. And he has like a couple of okay jokes here and there. And for the rest of the movie, he's kind of unintrusive. And then he has this fireplace scene. And I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a scene in a fireplace. And I was like, God damn it, he won me over. The snowman won me over that I was fully prepared to hate. I was like, God damn it, he won me over. So this character that I thought was going to be obnoxious, he was just kind of this cute little thing that's not really that intrusive in the movie, and then he kind of wins me over by the end. So I was like, all right, well played, Disney, well played. And the story, again, I don't really want to spoil anything, but it goes against expectations a little bit. Like, there was a point in the movie where I thought I was like 3 steps ahead of the characters and the story, and then it kind of turned around, and again, I don't want to really spoil it, but it caught me by surprise, and the way the story played out, and when they set up the climax played out the way I felt it should have. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but Frozen was a very, very good theater experience. I'm glad I saw it. People were right about this one, and if you're a fan of animation and if you're a fan of Disney, go see this movie. It's already been out for a couple weeks, and it's been doing very well at the box office, and I have to attribute the success of this movie to the quality of the product, because I can't believe people looked at that marketing and said, I need to see that. I just can't believe it, because the marketing just looked obnoxious. It just looked absolutely obnoxious. So I just gotta believe that the movie was so good, and it was just good enough to kind of, get that word of mouth going and get people to want to go see it. Like myself, I had no plan to go see this movie, and it really caught me by surprise and was really, really good. And I think it's an instant Disney classic. I think it's an animated gem. If it's not Best Animated Movie at the Academy Awards, I call bullshit. So, Frozen, if you're a fan of animation, you're a fan of Disney, go see it. Ignore the marketing. And again, whoever was in charge of the marketing campaign for this movie should be fired, because I felt like you really did a disservice to a great, great movie, and you should be hyping this thing up and promoting this thing like it's a masterpiece, and you should be proud that you made this movie with these stunning visuals, this great music, and this all-around great emotional little story. So I think Frozen's great. I highly recommend it. I said in one of my previous videos that my 2 favorite movies of the year were Pacific Rim and The World's End, for different reasons. I'm going to put Frozen right up there. This movie really caught me by surprise, and I really liked it. So, yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. It's fantastic. Just that great Disney magic.
The greatest adventure is what lies ahead today.
The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, Part 2 in the Hobbit Trilogy. I gotta give a lot of background here to illustrate where I'm coming from, just like I did with Frozen. I'm a big Tolkien fan. Love the Hobbit book, love the Lord of the Rings books, I love the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. I think it's a motion picture masterpiece, epic. I don't like it as much as the original Star Wars trilogy, mind you, but I do think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is very, very strong set of movies. And but I have a lot of love for The Hobbit as well. Grew up with the book. I grew up with the animated film, which for years to me was the ideal adaptation of The Hobbit. And after the first 2 entries in Peter Jackson's new trilogy, I still feel that way. I still prefer the animated movie. And I didn't do a review or anything of the first Hobbit movie. I didn't really give my thoughts on it last year because I did not see it last year. I had decided, it's like, I am not going to sit through 3 of these movies. I'm just not. I spent my 10 hours in Middle-earth. I'm good. And when they first announced that they were going to do a Hobbit movie, I was like, cool. I like The Hobbit. I would love a live-action Hobbit movie. But then when I heard that they were going to stretch it out to 3 3-hour movies, I was like, what? Have you seen the book? I don't have my copy of it with me, but it's not that long of a book. You can do it all. Okay, the animated movie did it in about 75 minutes, and that was a made-for-TV movie, and there are a couple of omissions, but overall they got most of the story in there, and very cleverly worked in Tolkien songs, I have to say as well. But, you know, little tweaking, you could probably turn The Hobbit into 1 2.5 3-hour movie, if you want to. And that's probably the way it should be, because The Hobbit is not this grand fantasy epic quest like Lord of the Rings is. It's basically a children's story. That's basically what The Hobbit is. And I think taking a simpler approach would have been more befitting to the story, to the source material that you have. And I think by stretching it out as long as you have, you're kind of just killing yourselves to pad it out with material that doesn't come from anywhere and doesn't really have any bearing on the story. And it's just padding, and stretching on top of stretch on top of stretch. And I was very pessimistic about that idea and about that approach. I'm like, why can't I just have one awesome Hobbit movie? And my fears were pretty much confirmed. I finally watched the first one about a month ago. And again, the stuff from the book is very good. I like Thorin. I love the scene where the dwarves go to Bilbo's house at the beginning of the movie. I love, what else? Riddles in the Dark was fantastic. It's my favorite chapter in the book. It's my favorite scene from the animated movie. It's my favorite scene in this movie. And so far, it's my favorite scene in both Hobbit movies combined, but I'll get to the second movie in a bit. The stuff from the book is typically very, very good. But then they threw in all this just... padding is the best word I can use to just space out this story to 3 movies when it just doesn't warrant it. And I really do think that this trilogy is a victim of the success of the first trilogy, because now people... I think they did a lot of these things because they expect people to have a lot of tie-ins to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because that was the successful... motion picture masterpiece, so they want to remind people of that trilogy as much as possible. So Frodo has a scene in the start of The Hobbit, serves no purpose. It's just, hey, here's Frodo, it's for the fans. And that's, 5 minutes that we didn't need to spend at all. Saruman has a cameo in the movie, he doesn't need to be there. Galadriel's in the movie, she doesn't need to be there. Just so much of it that just doesn't, so many references to the original trilogy that just doesn't need to be there. And there's this whole subplot with the Necromancer, and yes, the Necromancer is mentioned in the Hobbit book, but it's not a big story point. It's basically just an excuse to write Gandalf out of the story while the dwarves are off having their own adventures, because Gandalf's kind of a deus ex machina type, because he's so powerful that he can pretty much bail the dwarves and Bilbo out of any situation, which he does at first. He bails them out against the trolls, he bails them out against the goblins. So he kind of, but in the later stages of the quest, he needs to be written out of the story so that he can't just bail them out of it. bail them out of everything. And that's basically all the necromancer is. He's an excuse to keep Gandalf out of the story. And they try to expand on that, and without trying to give too much away, it's basically just a bunch of foreshadowing for the war in Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, look, we already saw that war. We already saw the war with Sauron, the war for the ring. I don't need to know where the Morgul blade came from. I really don't. I don't need to know any of this stuff. I don't need to know, to reference the second movie, I don't need to know the resting place of the ring wraiths and where they come from. I thought that was adequately explained in Fellowship, quite honestly. Radagast the Brown is in both of these movies. He was so unimportant they left him out of Lord of the Rings. He's a minor, and I can't stress that enough, very minor character in the novels. And he's not in the movies because he plays almost no role, and having him there would just be a waste of time. So why the hell is he in The Hobbit, a book that he was not included in at all? It's just, oh god. And, the Lord of the Rings movies, the first three, being as long as they are, was understandable because you're pulling from source material that there's a lot of. I mean, there is a lot of detail, a lot of material to work with in Lord of the Rings, and trying to adapt that into 3 movies is very hard to do. So those movies being as long as they are was very forgivable. And I didn't really let that reflect on Peter Jackson at all. I was like, well, yeah, it's Lord of the Rings. It has to be long. You're not going to do the story justice if it's not long. And then he made King Kong, and I was like, dude, it's King Kong. And granted, I liked his version of King Kong. I did enjoy the movie overall. But there's just so much in there that just doesn't need to be there. The first hour of the movie could probably be cut down to about 15 minutes. Because it's look, let's just get to the island, okay? That's what's most important. We don't need to spend all this time in New York City until the end of the movie. But I was like, oh, he just makes long movies. So this is his thing. And then when I heard about The Hobbit and how it was going to be made into a trilogy and everything, I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Peter Jackson just can't help himself, I guess. Maybe that's why he was the perfect director for the original trilogy, because it's like, yeah, I want to make long movies. I totally have the patience and the energy for that. But I really don't want to sound like I'm harping on these movies and that I'm completely shitting on them, because the 2 Hobbit movies, again, the stuff that comes from the book is really good, and some of the changes I did like. I like that there's a pack of orcs following the dwarves throughout the entire movie. I think that adds an extra element. There's a lot of danger in front of them, but then there's a lot of danger behind them as well, and I think that's a nice element. And who's the leader of the orcs? It's Azog the Defiler, I think that's his name, which kinds of, the name sounds a little date rapey, but they gave him an interesting backstory, and they did make it feel like he belongs there, and he's tied into the main story. The stuff that I don't like, again, the stuff with the necromancer just doesn't need to be there. And there's a reveal with the necromancer in the second movie that's not shocking at all to anybody. And with that, let's just bounce into the second movie. Again, the stuff from the book is really good. Smaug was great. I've heard some people complain about the design of Smaug. I liked it. I thought it was fun. Some people said he looked like he kind of had like bat wings because his arms are attached to his wings or something. And I'm like, I was fine with it. He still looked powerful, and that voice was fantastic. I think that's Benedict Cumberbatch. Cumberbatch, is that his name? Yeah, his voice was superb. It really fits Smaug, and I like that the dwarves actually fight Smaug in the mountain during that sequence. So yeah, that was all really good. The scene on the barrels where they're escaping on the barrels from the wood elves, and the orcs are also following them, and they're fighting with the wood elves while also fighting with the dwarves. I thought that whole sequence was really good. But again, it ties into the main story, and it's the focus of the story should be the dwarves are trying to get to the Lonely Mountain. That should be the focus of the story. That's the direction. And obviously Bilbo is the main character that we follow throughout the whole way. And by adding all this stuff with the necromancer and this whole thing with Lake Town, where they're under the rule of some, evil politician or something, I'm like, okay, I don't mind expanding on Bard and his character, because again, he ties into the main story, but this is just unimportant minutia that we don't need to know about. And adding a new elf character just so she can have a love triangle with Legolas, who was not in The Hobbit, and she can have a love triangle with Legolas and one of the dwarves, I think it was Keeley, And it's like, oh my god, this has nothing to do with anything. All of this is just unimportant, and so much of this movie just didn't need to be there at all. It was just padding and padding and padding and more padding. And when I said in the first movie that they tried really hard to remind a lot of people of the original trilogy, they really did it in this movie, because there's a scene, they're directly trying to recreate moments from the original trilogy. There's a scene where Gandalf has kind of a standoff on a bridge, and again, I'm not trying to give everything away, but he has a standoff on a bridge, and it looks eerily similar to the whole "you shall not pass" scene in the fight with the Balrog. It's not exactly like that, but it's enough to where it's like, oh wow, you really did try to recreate that moment. And there's a scene where Keeley, the aforementioned dwarf, is stabbed with a Morgul weapon, and he's slowly dying of poison, and the elves have to get to him to cure him. Which, what does that sound like? That sounds like Arwen and Frodo from the first movie. And it's just like, again, and I wouldn't have a problem with it if it was actually interesting and tied to the main story, but I think it takes the focus off the main story, because it's all this foreshadowing of the trilogy that we already saw. We know what happens in that trilogy. We saw that war. You don't need to foreshadow it. And quite honestly, The Hobbit should be its own separate story. It is its own separate story if you read the book. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit really don't connect all that well together, except for a few characters like Bilbo, Gandalf, Gollum, and the Ring. And that's about it. I mean, those are really the only connections. Other than that, they're really their own two separate stories, and by putting all this foreshadowing of the war that's to come 60 years later, you're just bogging the movie down, and you're taking attention away from the really important stuff, which is Thorin, Bilbo, and the dwarves. That should be the main focus of the story. And by doing all this other stuff, I really think it slows the movie down and just makes it just bulkier than it really needs to be. And I expect more of the same from the third movie, quite honestly. And actually, the ending to this movie is hilarious, because, you know, for the people that were there that originally saw Fellowship in theaters, which I can't believe that it was over a decade ago. Oh god, I feel so old. But I remember when that movie came out, the people who hadn't read the book said, wow, that ending was kind of a fuck you. It was like, oh, movie's over, gotta wait for the next one. This one is even worse. It's even a bigger fuck you to the audience. It's like, yeah, gotta wait for the next one. Blah, 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 blah. It's amazing. It's pretty amazing. It's like, I almost had to applaud Peter Jackson for that. But what I'm hoping for with The Hobbit, and I know it's never going to happen, instead of an extended edition, because quite honestly, I feel like I've already watched 2 of the extended editions. I mean, I can't imagine what he cut out of this. Like, because what could you have possibly... I mean, he released an extended edition for King Kong, and I was like, dude, what the fuck did you cut? You couldn't have possibly cut anything. It's I'll give him credit, he's a passionate filmmaker, but pacing and time and economy of time is very important to a movie, and Peter Jackson needs to learn that lesson again. Because again, for Lord of the Rings, it fit perfectly. I actually had some people tell me that Fellowship felt a little rushed. And I was like, how can a 3-hour movie feel rushed? But when you consider all the material that they had to drop and the material that they ran through and everything, you can see how it kind of has that very fast pace to it. But it's just so slow. And so much, like I said, so much of it just doesn't need to be there. And what I'm hoping for is that when all 3 movies are released, they do a condensed, I might even just make it myself, why not? Just a condensed edit of all 3 movies, just the book. Like, just the stuff from the book. Because like I said, the stuff from the book and the stuff that kind of, even the changes that kind of plays off of things that deal with the book are really good. And those are the best parts of the movie. It's just so much of everything else just feels like senseless filler, but it also feels like it's almost, again, going back to the whole how it's all a victim of the success of the first trilogy. It feels like there's this feeling like if we don't make 3-hour movies, people will look down on it. And personally, I'm not on the business side of things or the creative side of things. I would be perfectly happy with just one Hobbit movie. So, when all 3 movies are eventually released, I might do that. I might just, just cut all 3 movies down and just make one movie. And I guarantee you I could get all 3 movies down into like a solid 3-hour, maybe 3.5-hour movie. Just tell the main story, and you'll be fine. But as it stands now, it's just, I feel like I've watched 2 parts of one movie with a shit ton of padding that kind of almost went in one ear and out the other, because it's just not important and I don't care. I want to see the main story, and they still have some stuff to get through with the book. I mean, the Battle of Five Armies is coming in part 3, so we'll have that to look forward to. But The Hobbit, not a bad movie. I'm not saying that these are bad movies. I'm just saying it didn't need to be a trilogy. I'm a big Jim Henson fan. What of it? I grew up a huge fan of the Muppets, and always had a lot of respect for Jim Henson's work. Actually, when I was a kid, my big 3 entertainment heroes were Mel Blanc, Ray Harryhausen, and if you don't know who those 2 are, I feel sorry for you, because they're both awesome. But it was Mel Blanc, Ray Harryhausen, and Jim Henson. They were my 3 big, entertainment heroes. The guys that, in watching television and movies, they were the 3 guys that I looked up to. And they were all guys that kind of worked behind the scenes, so it was kind of interesting that I kind of took them on as the ones that I really admired and whose work I really appreciated in my youth, and still do to this day, quite honestly. But because of my love and appreciation for Jim Henson, naturally I'm a very huge Muppets fan. So anything with the Muppets in it, I'm going to give it a shot, at least. I'm not saying everything that the Muppets have ever done has been gold. I mean, I did sit through Muppets from Space, for example. And the Lady Gaga special they just did was kind of, it was alright. Too much Gaga, not enough Muppets. But this movie looks good. The story revolves around the Muppets having to save Kermit after he's been mistaken for some international diamond thief, who's his exact double. Ernest fan, that sounds almost identical to Ernest Goes to Jail, but it's like Ernest Goes to Jail in Europe with Muppets. But what I like about this, and what it looks like this movie's going to be, is the last Muppet movie they did, which revived the Muppets and brought them back. That movie felt like a spiritual sequel to the Muppet movie, the original Muppet movie, which, I'll be honest, is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's this really goofy, really silly musical, but it's also got these emotional moments as well, and it's about the Muppets' road to success and how they ultimately became the stars that they are. This movie looks like it's more of a spiritual sequel to The Great Muppet Caper, and while the Muppet movie is my favorite, I think The Great Muppet Caper is the funniest and has the best gags overall, and is overall the best comedy of the bunch. And if they want to make a spiritual sequel to that, I think that's a really good idea, and I think opens itself up to a lot of good jokes and just the Muppets being the Muppets. And hopefully they really take full advantage of that concept. And make a really good movie out of it, because I love the Muppets and I love to see them do well. So here's one Muppet fan that'll be there in the theater. Well, of course I want to see Captain America. I'm a nerd, but it goes beyond that, because quite honestly, of the Marvel superhero movies that they've done, I really liked Captain America. I thought that was a really good movie, nice period piece, and just a fun action-adventure film. And I like the character of Captain America quite a bit. Actually, in the Avengers, I really liked the role he played in the final battle. Iron Man, Thor, and the Hulk are kind of just these powerhouses, but Captain America, he was kind of the quarterback. He was the leader that kind of, planned out the strategy and told them what to do, and the point is, you do this, you do that, you do that, you do this. And I thought that was a really awesome trait to have for the character, and it made the first Captain America a really good movie, and it made his great character added to the Avengers as well. So coming back with a sequel, I think is really good, because we got the period piece, we got him set in World War II. Now we're moving him to the modern day, where technology has obviously advanced the way it has, and now we get to see Captain America have his own individual story in modern day times, and I think that could be really interesting. And based on what you see in the trailers, with all these explosions and all these great action sequences and all these great fight scenes, like the guy catching the shield and all that stuff. It looks like there's a lot of fun to be had in this movie, so I think it could be a really fun comic book superhero movie. And so here's hoping I'm right, and I am looking forward to it, and it looks like a really good time. Now, this is one that Disney could just as easily screw up, especially when you look at some of their other, like, property-based fantasy movies. Like, the Oz movie they did was kind of, I mean, who thought it was a good idea to cast Mila Kunis as the Wicked Witch? I mean, seriously. I mean, who owed who a favor to make that happen? And don't even get me started on Alice in Wonderland. That was fucking terrible. But, you know, this is a movie based on a character that I've always found very fascinating. Sleeping Beauty is one of my favorite animated movies in the original Disney films, and it still is to this day. And a large part of that is because of Maleficent, because I feel like the movie wouldn't work without her at all, because she's so striking and so powerful and just has such a commanding presence, and is just this wonderful embodiment of everything that is evil. I mean, she's just fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better villain than that, and really, she makes up for a lot of the deficiencies in the other characters. Well, quite honestly, Sleeping Beauty herself, the character, is really a MacGuffin, and that's really all that she amounts to. The character herself is very vapid and one of the lesser Disney princesses for sure. But if you look at the story from the perspective that the fairies are really the protagonists, then that makes it a lot better, because it's really, the prince and princess are really just pawns. And the real battle is between the fairies and Maleficent. And I haven't heard whether or not the fairies are actually going to be in this movie. I feel like they should, because I think they're just as important to the story as Maleficent is. But my point is that Maleficent is such a intriguing character and is such a fascinating villain that reworking the Sleeping Beauty story to be told from her point of view, I think is very interesting, even if it is just a ripoff of Wicked. But I think it is something that could really work. And as for the casting of Angelina Jolie, I actually really like it. The basic costume for Maleficent looks fantastic in silhouette, and especially with the horns sticking up and everything. But then when you see Angelina Jolie's face, she really does capture that original look with the cheekbones and the very striking look in her eyes. And that is something that was always important to me with Maleficent, just the way her eyes looked. And I think Angelina Jolie has that as well. Now, apparently the story's going to be about not just the actual Sleeping Beauty story, but it's also going to be about how Maleficent became who she is. And that could be an interesting story to tell. It is an interesting story to show how a good person goes bad, or how can somebody become that evil, although Star Wars fans will tell you that that story could just as easily go wrong based on the prequels. But yeah, I'm hoping that if they do go that route, that's fine, that's totally great. I just hope they don't like soften up Maleficent too much and make it like she's some kind of like she's really a good guy or something, or she's just misunderstood. I hope that's not what they go for here. She can start off good and then turn evil. And that's kind of the route I want them to take. Like, I want her to be like just total full-on evil bitch mode, and because that's the way I like my Maleficent. She's just so delightfully evil and so kind of powerful and scary, and I hope they really do capture that in this film. And based on some of the imagery I've seen, it looks like they could possibly do that. But again, with Disney's recent track record on some of their fantasy films, it's really a toss-up. Well, it's no secret that I pretty much have to be a fan of X-Men, between, my love of comic books, superheroes, and just the fact that I grew up in the 90s, where it was pretty much a prerequisite to to like X-Men. Not only because of the comics, but because of the animated show that was out at the time, which was a really big deal, and one of the better animated shows of the time period, I think. So, yeah, big fan of X-Men. So many great characters, so many great stories, political intrigue, social commentary, all kinds of great stuff that goes hand in hand with the X-Men and the concept and all the character relations and everything like that. So, naturally, I'm a fan of it. The movies, it's really amazing to me how this franchise, this film franchise, resurrected itself from the dead. Because I'll be honest, the first movie I was not a huge fan of. It's not painfully terrible like some other ones were at the time. It was actually the first one, and I think people like the first X-Men movie as much as they do, because it was the first one in so long that wasn't just god-awful. It's only like, for me anyway, I always kind of felt that way, but I don't like passionately hate it or anything. But I thought the second one was much better. X-Men 2 was much better, better cast. Well, I mean, most of the same cast, but the new characters they added were great, like Nightcrawler. And I'll be honest, Wolverine and Nightcrawler have always been my two favorites, so to see them shine in the second movie was pretty cool. And better story, just better all around everything. X-Men 2 was the best X-Men movie up to that point. Then we got X-Men 3, which I don't hate as much as everybody else does. Everybody else is just passionately just hates that movie. And personally, I don't hate it. It does have flaws, though. I thought the conflict of the story the main conflict that was the core of the story, I thought was very interesting. It's mostly just a bunch of like little things here and there that just, after a while, it just kind of adds up. So it's not, I don't think it's completely awful. It was better than Superman Returns. Bryan Singer left the franchise to go make Superman and ultimately hurt two franchises because the Superman movie sucked and X-Men suffered in his absence. So, good job, Bryan Singer. But then the Wolverine movie came out and that was awful. That was the worst. That one is by far the worst of the X-Men movies, without question. And I just kind of thought, X-Men 3 wasn't that great. Wolverine movie was terrible, and I'm like, maybe this franchise is done. I was like, maybe, not that they couldn't do new things, but maybe like the creative minds behind it just isn't there. And after that Wolverine movie, I'm like, well, interest in the franchise is going to be dead after this, because I just can't imagine too many people being all that hyped over another X-Men or another Wolverine movie. And I remember hearing at the time that there was going to be a Magneto movie, which I was like, really? Schindler's List with mutants? And I don't know if I want to see that. That's I don't know. But I kind of thought the franchise was dead. And then when I heard they were going to do First Class, I was like, yeah, sure, okay. And that'll be good. And it's like, oh, it's not going to be a reboot. It's going to be totally a prequel. So they're not going to start from scratch, which shocked me because I thought, after the lukewarm response to X-Men 3 and the horrible response to Wolverine, I was like, you might as well just reboot it at this point. So I was shocked that they was like, okay, it's going to be straight up prequel. And I was kind of like, I looked at the characters they were using in this movie and I was like, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be awful. And then I saw it. I was pleasantly surprised, very much so. Actually, I'll go as far to say it's probably the best X-Men movie made to date. And it really took me by surprise. I was like, wow, that was actually really good. And it was like, who's the guy playing Professor X? He's awesome. Who's the guy playing Magneto? Fassbender? Love him. He's great. Beast and Mystique? Oh my god, they got reimagined and they're great. Wow, there was more to this movie than I gave it credit. And again, I'll say it, it's my favorite X-Men movie to date so far. It beat X2 in my eyes. The only thing wrong with it my only knock on it at the time was that I wish they had just done a straight up reboot and used more familiar characters like Cyclops and Storm and good Rogue. That was one of my knocks on the first three X-Men movies, was that Rogue sucks in those movies, and again, more on that later. But overall, I was like, wow, First Class was really good. I can't wait to see a second one. And then I hear that Bryan Singer's returning to the franchise, and he's doing Days of Future Past, which is one of the big X-Men stories, both in the comics. It was a big deal in the original series. It was one of the first big two-parters, if I'm not mistaken, in the animated series that I grew up with. So Days of Future Past has always been a big story in X-Men, and I heard Bryan Singer's going to return to make that. And he's going to basically combine the two casts to do, basically it's a First Class and X-Men Trilogy crossover between the two casts, and it's obviously going to involve the time travel and everything, and it's like, oh my, that could be really good. Like, that could be kind of awesome. And then the first trailer came out, And I was like, holy shit, this movie looks totally amazeballs. Amazeball. Not amazing, but amazeballs. That's what that trailer looks like. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this looks like this could be pretty amazing. And let's do a roll call of all the X-Men that are going to be in this movie. We have Wolverine, Storm, Mystique, Beast, Iceman, Kitty Pryde, Rogue, motherfucking Bishop, Sunspot, Warpath, Blink, both Magnetos, both Professor X's, and this little treat right here, motherfucking Sentinels. And that's just what they showed us in the trailer. I have no idea who else might pop up in this thing. I mean, it's a time travel story, so that really opens the door to really fuck around with things. And, you know, they could theoretically bring Cyclops and Jean Grey back. I mean, it's time travel. Anything can be undone, and I'm looking at this whole setup, and of course, it's Days of Future Past, and you have to have Bishop and motherfucking Sentinels in there. I can't stress how awesome that is and how excited that alone makes me. We're getting Bishop and motherfucking Sentinels. That is awesome. But, you know, I'm looking at this whole setup. They're not just pulling from the Days of Future Past story. They're pulling characters from, like, X-Force and things like that. So they're really digging into X-Men lore and just pulling from all these things that they could, could possibly pull from to make this the most epic story possible. They're doing all of that. They've got the cast from the original trilogy to pull from. They've got First Class and their cast to pull from, and they're really dovetailing off of that movie, which in my eyes is, like I said, it's the best X-Men movie to date. Great source material to work with, because, like I said, Days of Future Past is one of the quintessential X-Men stories. I don't see how this can't be the best X-Men movie ever made. I don't see how it can't be that level of good. Maybe even a movie that would rival the Avengers. If this fully lives up to its potential, this could be a movie that would be up there as one of the great all-time comic book superhero movies. And I hate to put that level of expectations on something, but this is just too good. I'm sorry, it's too good not to get overly excited about. So, I'm really, and I can't stress it enough, I'm so impressed with how they've been able to kind of resurrect this film franchise from the dead, and then come back and get us all excited about it again. It's really cool. Now, hopefully they do some things that I want. There are a lot of things I want to happen. Hopefully Rogue is a lot better in this movie than she was in the first three, because I really didn't like how Rogue was handled. That was one of my major problems with X1. I don't like that. I like Rogue to be strong and tough, because she's fucking Rogue. But hopefully they, and it's the same actress, but hopefully they write her a little bit better this time around. But there's so much potential with this thing. It's unbelievable, and I don't know how it's going to play out. Even having watched the TV show and read the comics, I couldn't tell you how this movie's going to play out, because it's its own universe. It's its own thing. So the door's wide open to do pretty much anything they want, and I'm really excited about it. I'm sorry, this looks like it could be just absolutely amazing, and like I said, it should be the best X-Men movie ever made. And not only that, but if this movie delivers, and then Bryan Singer follows through on his promise, or his tweet, I shouldn't say a promise, but his tweet, that we're getting Apocalypse in 2016. Holy shit. I mean, again, this is a franchise that was dead, flatline, and to come back and to promise us Days of Future Past, and then possibly get Apocalypse after that, bring it on. I'm all ready. This is going to be a lot of fun. I make it no secret that the 1954 original Japanese Godzilla is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my favorite monster movie of all time for sure. And Godzilla himself is easily my favorite movie monster of all time. Just everything about him that went into that movie really made Godzilla to me just this larger-than-life icon. He's like a force of nature. He's this unstoppable force that you can't reason with, you can't control, you can't fight. He is just this ultimate invincible force for destruction, and the images of Tokyo being set aflame and laid in rubble and ash, and the death toll, the people dying left and right, kids crying over their parents' dead bodies. It's a really disturbing movie. It's really dark and way different than the reputation that Godzilla has. And I love cheesy Godzilla. I want to throw that out there too. I love a lot of the movies from the 60s. And, you know, Godzilla vs. the Smaug Monster is one of my favorites. I love the 90s films. There's nothing wrong with cheesy Godzilla. But that 1954 film, that original, always stuck with me. I grew up on the American version, and even the American version really stood with me, and really just how different it was from all the other giant monster movies being made at the same time period. King Kong is, and I love the original King Kong, but that's a very action-packed thriller type of movie. That one's meant, you know, kind of like going on a roller coaster ride. It's meant to be like really exciting and bright and action-packed. And then you had other monsters out, like the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which was very cool, but it seemed like an animal. It was very animalistic in its motivations. And I can say that about most giant movie monsters, even some of the ones that Toho made, like Rodan and Mothra. Or every other movie monster, giant movie monster, had some kind of motivation for doing what they did and why they destroyed and attacked cities. Godzilla was without motivation, and that always struck me as interesting. He was just this unrepentant, unrelinquished force of death and destruction. He was basically just a walking death metaphor. And obviously that's what he was intended to be. He was meant to be a stand-in for the atomic bomb. And this coming from a country that experienced that level of destruction firsthand. So Godzilla really set himself apart from all the other movie monsters that were out at the time, and stands to this day, I think, is the best monster movie ever made. And obviously I'm a huge fan of the series. I used to watch Godzilla movie marathons all the time. I remember them on TNT and the Sci-Fi Channel, and just looking at the TV guide and checking out the new Godzilla movies. But I always wondered what it would be like if somebody would take the 1954 classic and update it and remake it with modern-day special effects. And that's never really happened. Toho's tried reviving Godzilla a few times. There was the 80s and the 90s, and this new Millennium series that was made in response to the American film. And I'm going to get into the American film in a little bit, but while I do like a lot of those entries, Godzilla vs. Biollante, really love it. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla in the 90s. Really love those films, and like I said, there's plenty of Godzilla films that I love and appreciate. None of them ever quite recaptured the same dark atmosphere and the menace of that original 1954 film. I mean, that's a very dark and tragic film. And none of the films that followed really captured that, in large part due to the fact that children were a large part of Godzilla's fan base. So they geared the, you know, as the kiddies watched more and more, they geared the movies more towards that and appeasing them. But I always wanted like that really big budget, badass Godzilla film that really harkened back to that original and really tried to recapture the sense of menace and destruction and really captured the weight and power of something like a Godzilla. I always wanted that. And I remember when Jurassic Park came out, I was like, oh my god, I think it's time. We can get that really awesome Godzilla movie now. The Godzilla movie that I've always wanted, like just a really updated, basically a remake of the 1954 film, or at least a spiritual remake at least. And I was so excited for that TriStar 1998 film. You have no idea. I was like, of course I was also, keep in mind, I was also 12 and 13 years old, and I didn't realize that Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich were hacks. That was not apparent to me at the time. I was a young and, stupid little kid. Had I been aware of that and had I done my research, I would not have been as excited for this movie. And I remember the marketing campaign for it. The only other movie I can compare it to, as far as the marketing campaign, was the Tim Burton Batman. I mean, I remember when I was 4 years old, you couldn't walk down the street without seeing the bat signal everywhere. And Godzilla was the same thing. You just saw this just immense marketing campaign. I remember New Year's Eve, they had that awesome TV spot where Godzilla's tail knocked the ball down in Times Square. Just amazing stuff. And man, what a disappointment what that movie was. I mean, that movie hurt. That one really, really hurt. And, the movie's pretty much not entirely hated, but for the most part, most people, whether you're a Godzilla fan or not, hate that movie. And I've got my take on why I didn't like it. But it wasn't what I wanted. And that's basically, and that sounds really childish and whiny, but it was not the movie that I dreamed of and not the movie that I wanted. It didn't capture that same menace. It didn't feel like Godzilla had leveled New York. It felt like the military did more of the damage, quite honestly. Go back and watch the movie. And Godzilla, while the redesign itself didn't bother me that much, they didn't keep the character intact. Even in his goofiest entities, Godzilla was this larger-than-life, invincible, unstoppable force. Even during the 70s, when he was Mr. Superhero saving the Earth, Godzilla had this larger-than-life appeal to him. And that was lost entirely. It didn't feel like this Godzilla, or Notzilla, or I Can't Believe It's Notzilla, or Godzilla in name only, Gino, or, Fake Zilla, whatever you want to call it. It didn't have any of the traits that you would associate with Godzilla. He ran away from the military. He somehow was able to hide in New York City. I still can't wrap my head around that one. How was a 200-foot-tall monster able to hide in one of the largest cities in the world? I don't know. That's Roland Emmerich science for you. And then you had that whole scene in Madison Square Garden where it's like, what, a nest with raptor babies? And that's what motivates Godzilla is... he's procreating, and I'm like, no, Godzilla's not supposed to have a motivation. Again, I realize a lot of the Toho sequels really played with that, but when you make 28 of these movies, things are going to change a little bit. But in that original movie, he had no motivation, and here his motivation was procreation, and that to me just made him more of an animal and really brought him down to earth, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And the way they killed him was beyond anything that I was willing to stand. They basically just shot him. And that was the extent of what it took to kill Godzilla, and that right there, when I saw that, I was convinced that Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich had never seen a Godzilla movie. Or if they did, they didn't care about honoring the character and honoring the legacy and really trying to recapture that original. I guarantee you, at the very least, they did not watch that original film. I would bet money on it they did not. Which, if I'm making a Godzilla movie, that would be the first thing I would watch to do my research. But that movie really disappointed me. I know a lot of people have their major movie disappointments. Every moviegoer has a May Memorial Day weekend, 1998. And, I understand that. For some people, it's Last Airbender. For some people, it's Star Wars Episode 1. Actually, Godzilla was so disappointing that that Star Wars Episode 1 did not register with me. I was still reeling from that movie, from Godzilla. So Godzilla hurt so much that Phantom Menace kind of like, what happened? I was still in a fog, just thunderstruck by what I'd seen the year before. But, that movie hurt me a lot. And Toho came back and they remade the series and they did the Millennium films, and I appreciated that. They obviously wanted to respond to the disappointment over the American film, and, those movies didn't really cover any new territory, though. It was just kind of more the same, kind of, cheesy, badass suitmation Godzilla, and that's fine, and I appreciate that, and I love that, but it's still not that big-budget, badass Godzilla movie that I've always wanted, and I kind of gave up hope on that ever happening because the 98 film was such a bust that I just assumed it's like nobody's ever going to touch Godzilla ever again here stateside. And once Toho's done, they'll just they'll shelve the character again, and then they'll bring him back when they see fit. And lo and behold, we get that epic. Before the Comic-Con announcement, there were some rumblings for years that there was interest in doing another American Godzilla, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's like, yeah, I really want to live through that disappointment again. And then Gareth Edwards was announced as the director at Comic-Con, where they showed that teaser footage. And yes, when that teaser footage leaked on the internet recently, like a couple months ago, I downloaded it. It is on my tablet, and because I knew Warner Brothers was going to take that shit down, and I'm like, I realize it's, trying to take something down on the internet is like trying to take piss out of the ocean. I understand, you'll be able to find it somewhere, but I wanted to get that thing saved on my tablet, and I'm like, yep, I can watch this whenever I want. Cool. But when I heard about that teaser and what it was like, and they used the Robert Oppenheimer quotes, and the immense reaction that it got right away. People seemed so excited. It was like, oh my god, that they kind of like... The understanding was that Godzilla kind of stole the show at Comic-Con that year. And then nothing. Then we heard nothing. And fans are just like buzzing. It's like, what's going on? Tell us something, we need to know. And then this year's Comic-Con rolls around, and they finally... debut a trailer for the Comic-Con audience, but they won't give it to us. We gotta wait 6 months, and they finally debut the trailer. And I have to say, after watching the teaser footage and watching this new teaser trailer that just came out, and I saw it in front of The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, and it looked pretty amazing on the big screen, I have to say. And I gotta be honest, I don't want to get my hopes up. It's like X-Men. I don't want to overblow it and get my hopes up and then set myself up for disappointment again, but I gotta say, I think they did it right. I think they're going to do this right. I think this is the Godzilla movie I've always wanted. Just the scope of the destruction that you see just from the teaser trailer. The size and power of Godzilla. The fact that they're keeping him kind of a secret. They don't want to fully give away the design yet, although it looks like the design is going to make everybody happy, just based on what I've seen. It looks like this is going to be the Godzilla movie I've always wanted. And it looks like, my favorite movie monster is going to be done justice in an American big-budget film from a director who clearly has passion for the project. I'd never heard of Gareth Edwards. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I decided to check out his movie Monster. Again, doing my research. He made a low-budget independent monster movie called Monsters. And while it's not the best movie I've ever seen, I'm not going to say that, the special effects are amazing for a low-budget film. Looks fantastic. And I couldn't believe it's like, this is a low-budget indie film? It looks pretty solid. And I felt like the direction and the things that he did with the story and handling how monsters affect society, because that's another big thing that I find intriguing about Godzilla. You see it in the original film, and you see it in some of the sequels as well, like in Godzilla 1985. How do you deal with Godzilla politically? What would happen if Godzilla actually showed up? How would the politicians react? How would other nations react to this? How would the civilians react? There's all these questions that go on. And actually, I finally heard this not too long ago, that in the original Godzilla, there was a minor subplot thing where they were going to build the electrical towers around Tokyo Bay to keep Godzilla out. But to do that, they had to evacuate Tokyo first. And apparently, Godzilla didn't show up right away, and the civilians were pissed off. It was like, oh, these politicians, they don't know what they're doing, and blah, 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 whatever. We want to go back to our homes. And Godzilla's not going to come. And all of those different things. And, we, even as Americans, I mean, obviously we've never had an atomic bomb dropped on us, but things like Hurricane Katrina and, earthquakes in California and all kinds of other natural disasters that happen, and just the sheer scope of destruction when something like that takes place, you see a lot of those things happen. And blame starts being shifted, and the politicians wonder, what are we supposed to do to deal with this type of thing? Those type of aspects can be applied to Godzilla as well, and those are aspects that I find very interesting personally. So I hope they work that in too. Gareth Edwards said this movie is going to be an example of what it would be like if Godzilla actually did show up. So I'm very intrigued in seeing this movie. Without a doubt, this is the #1 movie I'm most excited for this year, and again, not only with all the positive things I've heard and I've seen with this movie, I mean, they're really building up good faith here. That teaser trailer still is just haunting, and even people I know who aren't Godzilla fans like I am, they looked at that trailer and was like, dude, that looks pretty sweet. That looks pretty awesome. So here's hoping it delivers. But in addition to all the things that they've shown us, and not much, because they've been very hush-hush about this whole project to the point that fans got immensely frustrated. But, movies like Cloverfield and movies like Pacific Rim have come out and really kind of reinvigorated my faith that, American filmmaking can do a giant monster movie and do it really well. So hopefully Godzilla is kind of the big payoff. And we get that truly epic Godzilla movie that I've always dreamed of. And, and again, this is my fan brain going crazy, and I realize that this will never happen. This is a total pipe dream on my part. But I would love it if this movie was a hit, and then they went the Marvel route and, started, reviving a bunch of the other monsters. Wouldn't it be cool if, okay, Godzilla's a big hit. Let's make a franchise out of this. Let's do a Mothra movie, and then let's do a Rodan movie, and then let's do a War of the Gargantuas movie. And you know what? If you want to tie in Gamera and King Kong and Pacific Rim and Cloverfield or whatever, I'm not going to be opposed to that. I would be totally open for that. Just saying. If you want to steal that idea, go right ahead. I will be... That's a shut up and take my money type of situation. But, do the crossovers, do all the Toho revivals, and then, like Marvel did the Avengers, then do Destroy All Monsters. And, oh boy, it's so much fun to think about. I realize it will never happen, but the fantasy that's floating around up here of what that movie could be like is pretty amazing. So, it's fun to dream. It's like Entangled. I have a dream. And I'm going to go to, a bar somewhere and start singing that song randomly and get beat up. But anyway, I've got a lot of high hopes for this movie, and I hate to do that because I just feel like I'm setting myself up for disappointment again. But everything I've seen so far, it's so far so good. So I think they're really putting their best foot forward with this. And, hey, Bryan Cranston's in it. Walter White, Heisenberg. If he's in it, that gives me a little bit of faith because it's like, oh, he's in good stuff. So here's hoping Godzilla 2014 delivers. It's the 60th anniversary. No better time to do it. So Gareth Edwards and all you guys working on this movie, I wish you all the best. It looks like you have the best of intentions to make the best Godzilla movie possible. Everything looks good so far, and I'm hoping for one kick-ass movie. So without a doubt, the number one movie I'm excited for next year, and here's hoping it delivers. So did you all get through that video okay? I know it was extremely long, way longer than I ever planned for it to be, but if you thought it was long to sit through the whole thing, keep in mind that I made it. So it was really took me a long time to get all of this done and get everything assembled to make this video happen. And of course my Frozen and Hobbit reviews turned out way longer than I initially planned for them to. So I apologize for this being as long as it was, but before I sign off for 2013, I've got a few announcements to make as far as my videos in 2014 goes. One project that I'm thinking about doing, I'm not sure if there would be much interest in me doing it, but I've considered it, and it would be fun to do for me personally, and if for nobody else, I would enjoy doing it. In preparation for the Godzilla movie, which I talked about in great detail just a few minutes ago, I'm thinking about doing a Godzilla movie review series where I talk about all the Godzilla movies and review them all and talk about which ones I liked, which ones I didn't like, why did this movie work, why did that movie not work, why do I like that one when nobody else does, why do I dislike that one when everybody else likes it, or so on and so on. And that would be fun to do for me personally. Again, I don't know if many of my subscribers would be overly interested in me talking about every single Godzilla movie, and it would be just the Godzilla movies. I wouldn't be talking about any of the Toho movies that eventually crossed over into the Godzilla series, like Rodan and Mothra and Frankenstein Conquers the World or War of the Gargantuas, or anything like that. But it would just be the Godzilla series, because quite honestly, there's 28 of those, and then there's the American TriStar Godzilla, which I would have to talk about. Again. So that's 29 movies altogether in preparation for this Legendary Pictures Godzilla film that's coming out. So that's something that I'm thinking about doing. I'm not sure how I would even do it. If I would just review, 3 or 4 movies at a time, or if I would just knock a big chunk of them out in one video, maybe do 9 straight in one video or something like that. I don't know how I would even consider doing it yet. But again, that's something that I'm toying around with the idea of doing. It's not confirmed that I am going to do it. 2 videos that I am definitely going to do, both of them wrestling related. I am definitely going to do something related to Monday Night Raw, because something that one of my more favorite videos that I made was the one where I talked about my all-time favorite episode of Monday Night Raw. I really enjoyed that. It was really fun to look up and rewatch my favorite episode of Raw while also listing the top 20 moments in Raw history in that little highlight package and everything. So maybe I should do that for the all-time worst episode of Monday Night Raw. Pick out the one that I hated the most and talk about that, why I hated that episode. And I've got it down to one of 2 episodes, and they're both from 2009. So if you're wondering where my thought process is, it's going to be one of those episodes. I've got it down to 2. I'm not sure which one I would go with yet. And then at the end of that video, obviously, there would be a 20 worst moments in Monday Night Raw history. So that'd be a fun video to do, and so be on the lookout for that. That's something that I'm definitely going to do in 2014. That might be the first video I come back with. I'm not sure yet. But, so there's that. And another video series that I'm going to do is my WrestleMania series. I've already done rebooking WrestleMania and showcasing the Immortals, and both of those were a lot of fun. But last year I also made a video listing the top 10 worst matches in WrestleMania history. And in that video I talked about how ranking my favorite WrestleMania matches, like the ones that I think are the best, would be extremely hard to do and almost impossible, because there's so many WrestleMania matches that I love for one reason or another. And ranking them and picking my favorites would be extremely hard to do. I'm going to do it. It's going to do a top 30 list of my top 30 WrestleMania matches, and it's going to be it's either going to be a 6-part series with 5 entries per video, or it's going to be a 5-part series with 6 entries per video. I'm not sure. Again, that all depends on what my schedule is and how much time I can dedicate to that. But and that's another thing that's kind of like keeping me thinking about doing the Godzilla movie reviews, because I'm going to have to be balancing this as well. So, but I am going to rank my top 30 WrestleMania matches, and keep in mind that my list is very strange. I've already made up the list, but it's a very strange list, and has some matches on it that most people probably won't agree with. And that's one of the reasons I was kind of hesitant to do this, because it's like, oh, people are going to hate my list because it's so odd and so weird. And but at the same time, it's like, you know what? This isn't like an official WWE made list. This is my list and my opinions and my thoughts and feelings based off of my experiences with these matches. So, fuck it. It's my list. And I think if everybody did their own top 30 list, you'd see a bunch of differences, because people have different experiences. One of my favorite pay-per-views is SummerSlam 1991, because it was the first pay-per-view I ever saw live. Well, for some people, that might have been WrestleMania 27. I don't know, a show that I've been very critical towards, but people might love that show because it was, maybe for some young kid out there, that was the first wrestling pay-per-view they ever saw. So, experiences are different, and opinions are different, and things of that nature. So, you know what? My list is my list, and we all have our weird ones, so deal with it. Anyway, but yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be coming in 2014 as we build into WrestleMania, and we'll start seeing those in January as well, and then we'll build into WrestleMania from there. And as I said, I've already made up my list for the top 30, and you know what? If you ask me to do it again in 2015, I might give you a different list, because, again, these things are changing constantly, and I do love a lot of these matches quite a bit, so depending on the day, my thoughts on them might change as far as how I would rank them, but I've settled on this list, and that's the one I'm going to go with. So hopefully when those come out, you find my list to be very interesting. There are some weird ones on there, I should say, and but we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, that's all I have for 2013. So thank you everybody for watching this insanely long video, and I'm sure it'll rank up there as one of the worst holiday specials ever made. But thank you all for the continued support. Thank you all for all the kind words and the comments and your participation in question and answers videos and things like that. I do appreciate it, and I do like to hear it when people compliment me on my videos. And I don't think of myself as like a great video maker for the internet or anything. I pretty much just do this for fun, and because I guess I like to hear myself talk or something. But I thank you all for the continued support, and I hope to see you all again in 2014, because I've got some big stuff lined up. So until then, I hope you all enjoy your holiday season. Merry Christmas to all of you, and a Happy New Year, and bitches, I'm out.
Christmas time is once a